Welcome to the Big Me Kickoff. I am your host, Kevin Noon. It is Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. I did not want to do a show on April Fools because that day is so full of crap. And I just don't want to be on something of where I start talking about something and everybody's like, is he serious or is that an April Fool's joke? So let's just remove that from the table, not do a show on April 1st and get on with it. So thank you for joining me here on April 2nd on the Big Me Kickoff. I want to thank our friends at No Naturals who have made a contribution to make this show possible. I will put up the crawl in a second, but I don't have my ad in front of me. So let me tell you a little bit about our friends at No Naturals. Are you ready for an entirely different edible experience? Welcome to No Naturals, where we're shattering the stereotype of one-note, slow-acting gummies. Forget waiting over an hour to feel the effects. Our gummies are like a sprinter out of the blocks, fast acting in just 15 to 30 minutes. Picture this, you're not choosing a flavor, you're choosing your vibe. With 5 core experiences and 6 custom combos, you're in full control. Whether it's energy and focus without the crash, a peaceful slumber that lasts all night, or a game-changing burst of bliss and euphoria, these edibles are the real deal. And the best part, you don't need a doctor's recommendation. No Natural gummies are dispensary quality and discreetly delivered right to your door. So whether you're craving a productivity boost, a good night's sleep, or some blissful euphoria, say hello to No Naturals. Try them today and use code HUDDLE10 for 10% off your order at shop.nonaturals.com. So we'll put that up here in the crawl. And I want to thank our friends at No Naturals. As I've said, if you're new to the show, I do use No Naturals. I prefer to use the rest ones because I have a hard time getting to sleep. And there's been a night or two where I've struggled still to get to sleep, but I don't think that anything would help me on those nights. But took one last night, had a wonderful night's sleep until the storms woke me up a little bit, and then I went right back to sleep. So check them out at nonaturals.com. Get yourself a great product, and it helps us out here at Buckeye Huddle as well, obviously, as an advertiser. So right, now that we got that out of the way, we'll do some of our hellos as people were in before I started the chat. And I do appreciate those of you who subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, give us the thumbs up, all of that, so you don't miss a single episode. I will be the first to admit that I am not very good about pre-planning these shows. I want to make sure that I have something to talk about. I just don't want to get on here and just be, talking for the hell of it. And I know you guys can carry the show. You guys will ask enough questions, and I always laugh. I don't need to prepare anything. If I prepare anything, it's all going to go to waste because you guys are going to dictate the topic, dictate the tone, dictate the tenor of this show. I'll just get the word vomit going on. And, had a friend of mine just tell me recently that I have the word vomit. So that's a phrase that's stuck in my mind right now. So, forgive me as I use that. Don't know if they're watching the show. If they are, hello. Yeah, so let's keep moving on. We got some IOs here, Doug and Steve. A lot of our usual friends are right here. Right now, Billy Tuesday is over here. Hello, Billy. Billy made the leap and came over to BuckeyeHuddle.com. I know some of you just watch us here on the shows, and that's all well and good. But if you really want to help us out and help yourself out, sign up for BuckeyeHuddle.com. Check us out over there. That is our day job. That's what we do for real. These shows are part of the job. We bring as much information as we can here, but we do try to save some stuff for the site. That is where everything is. Mark Givler, Tom Orr, Tony Gurdeman, Ross Fulton, everybody. We're all there on the site, more than I care to admit, to answer your questions, to anything from recruiting to X's and O's to where can I get a good steak if I go to the Penn State game? Not in State College, probably, but all of that is there. So if you have been on the fence, now is the time. And I think that we're probably going to have a special coming up here. So we don't ever really run specials. So kind of keep it locked in there. And if you get in early before we announce the special, that's fine too, because we will we will make sure to make good with you. So there you go. Drowsy Dragon is here. Just Win Baby Wingman Ted is here. Steve Buckholz, as I said, is hope everyone survived the nasty weather last night. Columbus is going to be getting it tonight. Yes, we did have a big run of storms that came through today, and I was talking to somebody who had to make the drive down from Columbus to Cincinnati early morning, and they had to pull off the road a couple of times because it was just so terrible. So everybody be safe. Make sure you have batteries in your weather radio. Have a safe place. Have a plan. Have a plan in place. Whether or not it's your basement, whether or not it's in the bathtub in the most interior corner of your apartment or whatever that you may have, condo, townhouse, mansion, I don't know. Make sure you have a plan in place if severe weather strikes. And I'm as guilty as anybody of having the news on. It's like, meh. It's like, oh, there is a storm, the potential touchdown 5 feet from Kevin Noon's house. Yeah, but it's not here. And, tonight could be a bad one. So everybody follow what you're hearing from the weather professionals and be safe. So that's what I've got right there. We got Wingman Ted. Who's your most shocking recruit that OSU has landed? The guy that they weren't supposed to get. Let me pull up a commitment list, because the thing is like I'm working on 25 and 26 at the same time. Right now, looking at the list, Naeem Offord, easily. That is the player that I was not expecting them to land. And that's not because I'm betting against OG Walt. I don't think that Tim Walton could land somebody like that. I think that for me, it is a case of Ohio State does not recruit the state of Alabama all that much, plain and simple. There's no two ways about it. And to go in there and to pluck out one of the best players in the state, maybe the best player in the state. I don't know my Alabama State rankings cold yet. On the heels of landing Devin Sanchez. Now, you would sit there and think potentially, why would Naeem Offord want to be in the same class as Devin Sanchez? But you got to remember, this isn't quarterback. There's only going to be one on the field at a time. This is going to be a case of you're going to have 5 defensive backs out there, whether or not it's 3 corners and 2 safeties or 3 safeties and 2 corners. So there is the chance of where loading up at a position is not a bad thing, and you want to be in as strong of a class and as strong of a team as you can. This isn't a case of, well, if I go somewhere and I'm like the guy and there's nobody else, it's just going to make me look better. No, because what's going to end up happening is, sure, they may not throw at you, but they're going to throw at everybody else. And when people lazily look just at the overall numbers, they're going to be like, well, he ain't that good. So Ohio State still has to hold on to Naeem Offord. And he has not done anything at this point to lead me to believe he is looking elsewhere seriously or anything like that. It is April 2nd. It is April 2nd. I know they've moved up the early signing period to the very beginning of December. So we're still looking at, 8 months? There is a long time to go. And while we can sit there and say Alabama's Alabama, it's different now with Kalen DeBoer versus Nick Saban, but it's still Alabama. And when Alabama finally wakes up and starts really recruiting in earnest, you know that Naeem Offord is going to get harassed and harangued and peppered about, well, just come and visit. Just come and check us out. Check us out. And Auburn, too. Oh, just check us out. So you're going to have to ride through a lot. So if I put Naeem Offord on you better just keep an eye on this one list, that insinuates that I'm already feeling that there is this flirtation elsewhere. And that is not the case. I am just playing history here of keeping kids in the Deep South can be a challenge. And it's not just for Ohio State. It's for non-Deep South teams landing kids in the Deep South and then having to hold on for dear life. But to the root of Wingman Ted's question, Offord far and away is the player that I would not have expected in the class. And I think Ohio State's going to take 7 DBs potentially. I mean, I heard some people try and say 8. And at some point, let's just say you're going to have a 25-man class. And it may be 25, it may be more. Just a second. I don't know what the dog is barking at. You're going to have to, are you going to have 1/3 of your class dedicated to defensive backs? Now you're going to lose a lot. Sorry about that. I think one of the other cats is sitting on the stairs behind the baby gate, messing with the dog. Are you going to be able to put 1/3 of your class in as defensive backs when defensive end is such a need and other positions are such a need? I don't know. I mean, could this be the year Ohio State really pushes it? It goes to like 30. I don't know. Hold on one second. I'm sorry about that. I had to go deal with that. And it's not going to do any good unless I lock that one cat up in a bedroom. That's not going to do any good. This is just going to happen. It's just what it is. So there you go. There you go. Now that I've lost all of my train of thought because of the dog. Billy Tuesday jumping in. Huddle's a lot of fun and a lot of info. Exactly. So, give us a look there. Sign up for a month. I mean, the best deal is signing up annually. That's where your price break is and everything else. But come and take a look for a month. I think that, Billy Tuesday is a staple in all of our chats. He would not lead you astray. Me, maybe. Maybe I would lead you astray, but Billy wouldn't. So follow that advice. It's just me, Tim. Hello, chat. Sean over here. What do you think of the new coach? I think it's a great hire. I'm intrigued. I'm not going to get out too far. You can't let your highs get too high. You can't let your lows get too low. He is a great story in terms of if you follow his career. I mean, because he's in his mid-40s and he's only been on-field coaching for a few years. He had a role at Western Kentucky for a year. He was at Oregon for 2 years, and now he's coming to Ohio State. Now, he also at Florida State served as like outreach, like high school outreach type thing, which is a heavy recruiting role. But there is a lot to like here. I don't think there's anything where I'm like, just don't like this. I think that there's the like column and then there's the unknown column. And there's a lot to like. Now, the unknown is really how is he going to recruit at Ohio State? And that, people are going to be like, well, Oregon is, very prestigious program. And, regardless of what your view is of everything else, it's not like it's apples and oranges. It's not that far apart. But I think when you're recruiting at Oregon, you are recruiting largely west of the Rockies. And at Ohio State, significantly more east of the Rockies. Ohio State, obviously, I think is in very good position to land Jordan Davison, the running back out of Mater Dei, Santa Ana, California, where Chris Henry Jr. transferred to. I think that's an important thing to point out right there. Ohio State, certainly, in my opinion, has more expectations on a yearly basis than Oregon. I still think Oregon is kind of a nouveau riche type of program, new money, if you will. There's just not, as much history of expectations. I mean, obviously, Phil Knight at Nike, being an Oregon guy, has pumped a lot of money into that program through the years and the facilities. I'm really looking forward to going to Oregon this year. We were supposed to go in 2020. Pandemic happens. Don't end up going. I ended up somehow losing $800 of airfare credit in there that I'll never get back. So I'm still a little salty about that, but I digress. I'm really looking forward to checking all of that out. But, getting back to Carlos Lachlan, How is all of that going to fit? How is he going to handle the running back rotation at Ohio State when you have Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Dallin Hayden, James Peoples, and Sam Williams-Dixon? Now, I think Sam Williams-Dixon is probably going to need a redshirt year. Whether or not you truly redshirt him or you just kind of you view him as your number 4 running back, I don't know. I think James Peoples will see some playing time. I think he's that good, but Dallin Hayden really is a big question mark. I mean, how do you utilize him? Carlos Loughlin had some backs at Oregon, but let's be honest. When you thought of the Oregon offense, it was Bo Nix and then Bo Nix and then Bo Nix some more. Ohio State is probably going to be a little bit more balanced. But if you look at the numbers over the last couple of seasons, Oregon running backs over the 2 seasons that Loughlin was running the running back room with the Ducks, I think it was 67 touchdowns between the 2 years. Ohio State was 50. So, you could say some of that too is Ohio State's issues in the red zone and 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 and having to pass in very obvious running situations. I'm curious to see how some of these things extrapolate, but it's not going to be necessarily a Carlos Loughlin situation. It is going to be a Chip Kelly situation as the offensive play caller. It is going to be a Chip Kelly situation and a Ryan Day situation. Now, you want to hold your position coaches responsible for their positions, but it's not solely on the running back if the offensive line is not getting a push. If you're being contacted 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, there are a lot of backs that just aren't going to be able to do a whole hell of a lot. So it is not a case of where it's like, well, apples to apples, we're looking at this and this all falls on Loughlin one way or the other. And that's not what I'm saying. That is just gross overgeneralizations and irresponsible to say. I understand that all 11 players on the field have a role, unless you're Notre Dame, and then it's 10 players on the field, or 9, or 14. Just depends on which game you're watching. So, Sean, I think we'll keep talking about Loughlin throughout the show, but I wanted to specifically address your question, and we'll go along because, again, I've had the opportunity to digest this. I've had the opportunity to think about it, and I can't always say on my shows, going into my shows, that I have given things a ton of time to think about, because a lot of times there's breaking news and within 10 minutes, Tom and Tony or myself and Tony or myself and Tom or the 3 of us are on the air. And I've spent the last 10 minutes trying to figure out how to get us on the air, and I haven't had a lot of time to think about the situation. Well, the Carlos Loughlin, I've had a couple of days to think about it. And I've talked to people in Oregon. I've talked to people who have known him at various stops. I need to talk to some Florida State people. I haven't gotten around to that one yet. But, the overall consensus is pretty good. He's not been coaching long enough necessarily to have this huge track record. People want to go and look at his recruiting and say, well, it's either thumbs up or thumbs down. A lot of the players he's recruited, he was at Oregon for 2 years. A lot of these guys haven't even necessarily had a chance to crack a depth chart. So it's a big incomplete. It's that big I. We do not know what's going on. But the reality of it is that he is going to be fishing in a much larger body of water at Ohio State, in my opinion. I know there's going to be some Oregon fan out there who's like, just the disrespect. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. And I've looked at the Oregon offer list for running backs, and it is from coast to coast. But again, the reality is that Ohio State traditionally draws from a larger area than Oregon. Oregon is going to have that kid in Florida or that kid in Virginia or wherever. It's like, man, I just really remembered watching some of those offenses and them having a different uniform combination every game. That really spoke to me. That's fine. So you could make an argument. It's like Oregon fishes in as big of a pool as Ohio State does. But Ohio State still, in my opinion, draws more kids from a wider area. I think Oregon still is a lot of recruiting California, recruiting Washington State, maybe going into Colorado. I mean, you're going to get that. And then, of course, you're going to have some overlap. I mean, everybody recruits Florida to an extent. Everybody recruits Texas to an extent. But we'll see. And I don't want to get too far into this and then more questions come up and more people show up and I get asked the same question. And I understand not everybody is able to consume the whole 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 90 minutes of the show. So I like to address the big questions at the beginning because we're going to have the people that come in at first. And then I'd like to address it maybe in the second half of the show because some people are just going to come in late, whether or not they hit the bell and they're just finally getting alerted. I mean, it's 1:21 right now in the East. Some people are probably just getting back from lunch. So we try to do all that. It's just me. Tim says that his backyard is flooded. Yeah, there was a lot of flooding around Pickerington and some yards that don't necessarily have a lot of great drainage. I live on like a hill, but I'm being facetious when I say that. Our lot like slopes down just a little bit, so we don't have a ton of flooding, but we just got our sump pump changed in the last 6 months, like last 3 months. Thank God for that. It was like, can we wait? No. And I'm glad we didn't because, I'm expecting a deluge tonight. Steve Buckholz, good for West Coast recruiting, hopefully. Potentially, but here's the thing. I think that there's going to be more of an impact with Coach Loughlin in Florida than anywhere else. And part of that's necessity, and part of that is history. And I'll say the necessity first. Tony Alford, in addition to recruiting running backs, was like a major Florida hammer for them. Ohio State recruits twofold, by position and by territory. And in doing so, you're generally going to have two coaches involved with players like the whole way through. Now, if you're a running back and you're in Florida, like Richard Young, who ultimately did not go to Ohio State, Tony Alford was kind of double dipping, but you still bring in somebody to assist. So that means there is a necessity to have a Florida hammer on your staff. So you've got that. Now let's go back in Carlos Loughlin's history. Prior to Western Kentucky, he was this director of high school outreach, or whatever the title was, at Florida State, which means he was heavily involved in the recruiting product for Florida State, likely in the state of Florida. So he has those numbers. He has those connections. He can sit there and call up IMG or Shamada Madonna or St. Thomas Aquinas or Dr. Phillips in Orlando or whoever and get some results. Now you're still going to have to recruit the kids. Being able to get on the phone to open the door doesn't mean anything. You wear that Block O polo or jacket or whatever, doors are going to get open. But with that being said, it's better if you already have some pre-existing relationships there, a level of credibility, if you will. I think all of that is very important. And I think that is something that Ohio State probably saw as an asset. I don't think you just go and say, well, this is the laundry list we need. And one of the things is they have to have a familiarity with Florida. Well, if you get so compartmentalized like that, you're going to run into some issues. But I think having that familiarity, having that history was a selling point, was not the selling point, but a selling point. But to Steve's comment, I think that there's still going to be some West Coast recruiting as well. Now, does this mean I think Ohio State's going to start going in and landing 2 modern day kids a year? Probably not. It's going to start landing more, St. John Bosco kids? Probably not. But I think that there is a certain level of familiarity with him that is not going to hurt. I think that maybe for Coach Loughlin, it's never a bad thing to hit the reset button every so often. And I'm not talking necessarily with a head coach. I'm talking with position coaches and things. And I'm not saying they need to do that at wide receiver or at safety or anything like that. They're perfectly fine with Tim Walton, Brian Hartline. They don't need to reset anything there. But it's not a bad thing, in my opinion, to hit the reset and maybe see if you can get some new ideas, new things. So, we'll see. Odysseus believes that Lachlan is an upgrade over Benedict Alford, as he's now come to known. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I don't have the answer. I don't think anybody has the answer, because we're talking about something that is not finite in terms of I can solve that math equation. There is one answer. 2 + 2 is 4. It's not Q. It's not squiggly face. It's not 9. It's 4. So you have a very linear way of going about that. How are we going to know if a coach is an upgrade over another coach? I think we're going to have to see a multitude of results. What does the on-field product look like? What does recruiting look like? Recruiting is not something of we can all fall in love with star rankings and what who has landed and everything else, but it doesn't mean anything until these kids play. And that doesn't mean go out and carry it once. They have to go out there and play for a season, 2 seasons. So we are a couple years away from really knowing anything. And I think it's exciting, though. I do think it's exciting. Neil Harris saying hello. Steve Buckholz agreeing with Odysseus on the upgrade. Ed Rogers saying Gahanna is safe. Here we go with Terry. 2 small tornadoes hit Hanging Rock in Wheelersburg, Ohio, near Ironton. Hope nothing got near one of my favorite places down there, the Scioto River in Portsmouth. And let's steer clear too of Biscuit World, Tudor's Biscuit World down there in Ironton. When Ohio State was recruiting the linebacker down there, God, why am I drawing a blank? Somebody will have it in the chat, and it'll be fine. But Tudor's Biscuit World is fantastic. I am not a big breakfast guy at all, but I'm not even really a big biscuit guy. I'm a SoCal guy. Did not grow up eating biscuits. That is a Southern staple. That was just not, even though my mom's family's from the South, they're just not what I did. But Tudor's Biscuit World on point. Odysseus wants to know if we have any hungry huddles planned for the spring game. Damn it, I want to. I'm going to work with Tom and Tony on something for that. We have got to figure out, and we just had a conversation about some of these things that maybe set us apart, that we are willing to have a little bit more fun. We just don't view the podcasts as 100% informational. Now, there are going to be people who are like, I don't like Hungry Huddle. I don't like the pickle eating challenge. I don't like any of that. Just get on here and tell me what I need to know and let me get on with my day. But we do have a lot of people that do enjoy some of the fun stuff that we do on the side here. And Hungry Huddle certainly is one of those things. We have availability tomorrow at Ohio State on Wednesday, which is a scheduled one. Maybe we get to talk to Carlos Lachlan. I think it might be a little bit too tight of a turnaround. And then we're not back on campus again in an official capacity until the day before the spring game. Maybe next week, if all of our schedules work out, we can figure out something and to give me a day to edit, because I think those of you who followed on with Hungry Huddle have seen some of them are a lot more creative than other ones. By going to the team hotel, going to the Ohio State hotel the night before the game, we have completely blown out the window that we would normally do Triple H. And I think we've made the right decision, because going and putting that up live and everything else is going to always be more valuable than us going out and having a couple laughs over a hamburger or Tony eating ketchup or whatever. So if we do it after that, and then we want to go out and have beers, guess who's sitting there with a computer in their lap trying to edit the piece as quickly as they can so they can drink more beer? This guy. So with this, I want to give myself a day to be able to really plan it out and do something worthy of all this buildup, since it has been the last Triple H I remember were those little Hungarian like dumplings we had. That's the last one I remember doing. We also shot one later in the season, and I never ran it because I was so unhappy. And I was unhappy with me. I wasn't unhappy with the boys. I was just unhappy with the shots I had, and it just was boring. And I'm just like, I'm just not going to do this because if you can't have fun with it, then what's the point of doing it? So I digress. We're at the half hour. I want to welcome everybody who maybe has joined us late to Big Me Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. Brought to you in part by our great friends at No Naturals. Check out on the scroll below. Figure out how you can get 10% off dispensary quality gummies shipped discreetly to your door. It's a lot of S's and D's there. Discreetly to your door. Use code HUDDLE10 for 10% off your order at shop.nonaturals.com. I am not only a spokesperson, I am also a client, so take that for what it's worth. Sean also saying that Lachlan has a relationship with Jordan Davison. Absolutely, and I think that's going to be important, and I think you've seen some of those indicators out there, crystal ball, RPM, glowing orb of wonderment, whatever the hell, coming out and linking Jordan Davison to the Ohio State class. I guarantee you that this Lachlan hire has been in the works for more than a day or two. I'll just say that. It has been in the works. And Jordan Davison has been aware of it. Now, Jordan Davison this is not a situation of where we're going to promise a kid that you're going to get to pick who your position coach is. No. But I guarantee you that in recruiting Jordan Davison, he was made well aware of this is the direction we're going. So I think Jordan Davison probably knew things for certain more than a lot of other people did. So I think that is big. And I think that's why Ohio State is going to land Jordan Davison. Now, how many backs is Ohio State going to take? At least 2. I think 3 seems excessive, though they were going to take 3 last year. Now you lose one. You lose Jordan Lyle. But then Ohio State goes in the portal and picks up Quinshon Judkins. Quinshon Judkins will be gone after this year. Trevion Henderson will be gone after this year. Does Ohio State lose somebody to the portal? I don't know. So if you lose 2, you would think, well, if you lose 2, you're going to gain 2. So therefore, it's going to be a 2-man class. But if there are 3 backs at Ohio State feel that all can help the team and play well and everything else, I think Ohio State potentially could take 3. But how do you take 8 DBs and 3 3 running backs and 5 receivers and everything else? I mean, at some point you just come up against the ceiling and you just can't, you can't break through that ceiling. So I don't know. I don't know exactly. Anybody says they know the numbers, they know they're taking 4, 6, 2, 1, 8, they don't know at the Woody. I promise you. They don't know. They have ideas. I think if you would go into Mark Pantoni's office and look at the board, they have ideas of what their targets are. But there are going to be kids out there that you're going to take them. If they tell you in December, I want in, you're going to figure out how to take them. And if Ohio State is going to be as good this year in football as we think they are, not only are you going to lose all of these guys who came back for one more year, let's run it back, reload the clip, even though that's not the right term, reload the clip. Those guys are going to be gone, but you're going to have a lot of other third-year guys that are probably going to bail. So going out and taking that 25-man, 28-man cap off, this is going to be an important year for Ohio State because you could see a drastic amount of change in personnel, player personnel of what you're going to have. So I think it's best now to just cast wider nets and then figure out the numbers later because it's all going to sort out. Ohio State is not going to go into the 25 season with a 97-player scholarship roster. That's just not going to happen. You just figure it out. Oh, an unexpected bill came up. Well, we got to figure out how to pay it. That's just life. So I digress. I'm sure we're falling way behind as I once again, what is the term? Word vomit. I have word vomit today. So there you go. Steve Buckholz, hit the like button, Buckeyes. Yes, hit that like button. Give us that thumbs up. Hit the bell. Subscribe to the channel. We just recently broke 20,000 subscribers here on the YouTube machine. We're now at like 20,200 and change. Our goal is to get to 25,000 before the start of the season. Feel like that's a pretty ambitious goal. You can help us get us. You can help get us there. If you're already subscribed, get a friend to subscribe. What the hell? I mean, you're here watching us. Obviously, we're doing something right, or you're just bored out of your mind. Maybe both. I don't know. But help us get there to 25,000 subscribers before the start of football season. It helps us with our distribution, obviously. It helps us with everything. And the more help we get there, the more great product we can bring you, and maybe more budget for Triple H, for Hungry Hungry Huddle. Haven't found a place yet that has comped our meal for coming in. I've gone to a couple of places that are like, what the hell are you doing? Well, it is what it is. Billy Tuesday, more anxiety about getting a commitment or keeping one. When in the calendar are we talking about? I mean, obviously, landing a kid is a big deal, and you want to do that. If you're like, well, I'm so concerned that I'm going to lose this kid, then what the hell are we doing at that point? But obviously later in the calendar, I don't think there's as much anxiety about keeping one. If a kid decides in October, the likelihood that he's going to flip before December is probably smaller. But if you sit there and you look at some other kids, I mean, like Ohio State went and had, got the commitment of Jevin Boggs. He ends up decommitting. Ohio State ends up getting the corner, Jonte Gilbert out of Atlanta. He ends up decommitting. But that was so far early. And you're playing defense for 14, 15 months. But it's also a kid-to-kid basis. I'm not as concerned about a Chris Henry Jr., even with him out at Mater Dei, even with him largely in USC's backyard. Yes, I'm from Southern California. You don't need to tell me that Mater Dei is in Orange County and USC is in Los Angeles County. And while it may only be 40 miles, it could be 2.5 hours on the 5. I understand that. I grew up with all of that. But there are going to be other kids that I'm more concerned about. I mean, obviously, I have my concerns about Naeem Offord. And that is not because I think that Naeem Offord is a game player or whatever. I just think that once Alabama finally flips the switch on its Death Star, puts that tractor beam on, it's difficult to get out of the clutches of that. So I think that's one that you're going to have to watch daily. But even as of today, Naeem or his family were tweeting very pro Ohio State stuff. So this is not something that's in my mind because there is like an immediate concern. I don't have an immediate concern. Super Chat just came in. We'll get to that here in a second. But, they're going to be, there's also going to be a flip. I'm not concerned about Carter Lowe. And that's not because I don't think anybody else wants Carter Lowe. Carter Lowe could go about anywhere. Carter Lowe wants to go to Ohio State. He is, Toledo may be in that no man's land, the land of, too close to Michigan, but also El Suzaba's there. So it's pretty cool for that. I'm not as concerned there, but you still have to recruit him. So I'm not having anxiety over that one. I just think, to answer your question, Billy, I really think it just comes down to when in the calendar you are. Let me jump down to the Super Chat, and then we will jump back up to where we were. Stephen Piper with the Super Chat. Love Larry Johnson, but how would you transition a stud replacement so you don't lose a recruiting class and a bunch of folks to the portal? Who would you target for the role? Well, you've asked me a lot here, so let me figure this one out. Ohio State had a plan in place if it could have landed the right guy, and that was to bring in another defensive coach to act kind of as a bridge, if you will. He, is not, you're not necessarily bringing in a coach and waiting for just a positional coach. But when you have somebody who has the reputation and the history and the results of a Larry Johnson, you do operate a little bit differently because that's what you have to do. So do you do something like that? I don't know, because if you have until the NC2A changes its rules, you only have 10 coaches who count, minus the head coach, as positional coaches, recruiting coaches, everything else. Now they're talking about, and it looks like we're going to get it passed this year, allowing GAs, QCs, QA, I mean, all of these other, other ancillary coaches to be able to on-field coach. Now, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to be able to recruit, but I think that gives you the potential of maybe bringing somebody in the short term if a move is coming, of where you have somebody working with these guys. Ohio State did bring in a pass rushing specialist to work with Larry. Now, is this guy Larry's replacement down the line? I don't know. I bet you a lot of defensive line coaches who are already established nationally are going to be like, I would like that job of taking over when Larry finally hangs it up. But I'm going to also say this. They're finally not putting Larry on one-year deals anymore. I think Larry's probably going to outlast all of us in terms of his coaching. Does he look like a man who's in his mid-70s? Not to me. Not to me. So, I don't know. I mean, and who would I target for the role? We've gone through all of the names, the Randall Joyners of the world and everything else. And the reality is when Larry does give indications that he is done, who are going to be the hot names at that point? I think everybody naturally wants to look at the Larry Johnson coaching tree. Who has learned under Larry? Because that's what we want to bring in. Is that necessarily the direction you want to go? I mean, Larry's had plenty of results, but you know what also makes everything look good? Bosa, Young, guys like that also certainly help the situation. So you need to be able to land these guys. So what is Jim Knowles still the DC at that point? How much impact is he going to have in that? I mean, obviously Ryan Day will still be the head coach at that point. What is his impact going to be on all of that? I don't know. I wish, especially on a super chat, since you were kind enough to kick into the channel, that I had a better answer. But the answer is that does this happen at the end of the 24 season, the 25 season, the 26 season? Who are the hot names? I mean, is Randall Joyner a DC somewhere else at that point? If he's a DC somewhere else, probably not going to be able to pull him for just a positional coach unless you're ready to run Jim Knowles out of town. So it's a question that I don't think I can answer per se. Steve Buckholz, I'm not going to punch it up at this point, says Mike Vrabel in a couple of years. I think Mike Vrabel, after his little his time out and doing what he is now, will find himself another head coaching role. There is a huge debate whether or not Vrabel is a college coach or not. I do not think that is where he wants to be. He can give all the interviews in the world after the facts, like, I don't mind recruiting. You didn't really like it the first time around. I'm not guessing. So I don't know. Everybody wants to bring in the former player great, but that doesn't always work. I mean, maybe we're talking about that more in basketball, where all these programs bring in these NBA guys and they just, suck in terms of coaching the college game and fade away. And certainly we've seen Ohio State have success, Walton, Hartline, guys like that. But for everyone that works, there are 15 that don't. And I'm not saying that Vrabel is guaranteed to be in that 15 that don't. Just put me in the category of saying that I don't need, of the 10 position coaches, 5 of them being alumni of the school that they were at. I just don't. So, take that for what it is. Let me get back to where we were, if I can find that. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Okay. Jared Jones says, I think we keep Offord. I'm not saying they don't keep Naeem Offord, but I'm saying that of everybody in the class that is in the class of this moment, I probably have the most amount of concern there. And one more time, and if anybody's come in the last 5 minutes, That is not a Naeem statement. That is not, oh, I think he's unserious or whatever. I just think based on where he is going to get an ungodly amount of pressure on him. And if he's able to sit there and maintain his commitment, which very well probably would, great, fantastic. I would love to be, proven wrong, even though I'm not saying he's not going to be part of the class. I'm just saying that is where my concern is. Antoine, I would say my favorite Michigan fan. I'll just say a Michigan fan. Just playing with you. How do you like Sonny in the middle? Don't seem like a good move. Well, he's not a Mike. He's not in the middle. And the thing is that I think that you put him in a position of where I think the closer you get him to the line of scrimmage, the better. I don't necessarily want him out there in coverage. At least not trying to cover certain players. I mean, he can cover a linebacker, but I think with him, I think Cody Simon, I think CJ Hicks, I think Ohio State's going to be very strong at linebacker this year. And I think that people maybe taking some of the things they saw of Sonny at safety and saying that those same errors are going to occur at linebacker. I don't think that's fair because you have different responsibilities, whether or not you're playing the boundary or you're playing deep safety or, you're playing linebacker. So let's at least get through the spring game and have all of that footage to pour over before we get too caught up and stuff. I think moving him down to linebacker makes sense, but I would move him to like a stand-up end. And maybe he gets a little bit less run doing that position just based on the depth and the rotation there. But I still think that is the right decision there. I'm sorry. I'm just looking to make sure nothing stupid was happening on social media while we're doing this, because the last couple of shows I've done, little bits of news have come out at that point. All right, here we go with Brian Melberg. Do you know if there are any plans to upgrade the football stadium anytime soon? I know it's a bit off topic, but I never hear anyone mention the stadium needing attention. I think there's always a plan in place. And Ohio State, news alert, Ohio State's going to have a new AD July 1. Ross Bjork will go from his advisor role to full bird colonel status as AD, as Gene Smith retires and heads off to Arizona to enjoy a well-earned retirement. Ohio State has done some work. And granted, we're not talking about in the last 6 months or whatever. Taking out some of the B-deck seats, putting in some luxury suites there on the odd side, the home side, taking out some of the limited obstruction view seats. Ohio State is going to need to do some winterization of pipes and things of that nature moving forward if Ohio State has to host a first-round playoff game. Gene Smith came out and was like, well, I don't know if I want them playing at Ohio Stadium there. I mean, no. I mean, you want if Ohio State has to host Ole Miss in the first round, you want to freeze Ole Miss out and play at Ohio Stadium. Granted, it would probably be one of those Indian summer type of days where it'd be like 54 out or whatever. But there are certainly plans that need to be done at Ohio Stadium, in my opinion, to stay up with some of the standards that you want to have. Now, Ohio Stadium is a historic building. There are certain things that just you cannot change. It is what it is. It's part of the charm of playing in a historical landmark, and you're just going to have to deal with it. But I think there's some creature comforts that can be worked on. And I can promise you, Ohio Stadium has gone through a lot since I was a student there. Hell, there was a dorm in the stadium when I was a student there. Hell, I mean, there were no bathrooms on C deck. I mean, so there's stuff, but the Woody Hayes facility needs to be worked on. Oh, by the way, so much money is going to NIL these days. There really is a finite amount of dollars that are out there and available, and you've got multiple forces all vying for those same dollars. So to Brian's question, I think that there's always a set of plans that are being circulated internally. I think there is a wish list. I think there is a, you know, immediate need, midterm need, long-term need, and then you just kind of see what fits and what you can do, and where you stand in your capital funds and everything else. I don't know if immediate action on Ohio Stadium is on the short-term burner outside of some winterization things that I think need to be taken care of. Now, if Ohio State is having to host a first-round game this year, it means that they've dropped a couple games along the way, and it's going to be an angry chat at that point. So we could maybe kick the can down the road. It's like, oh, they're not going to have to winterize the stadium, but you probably should just do that anyway while you're at it. So there you go. Let's just keep going through here. Troy V, pretty sure as long as it was green, Kevin would be just okay with new money too. From Troy's lips to God's ears. From Troy's lips to God's ears. Yes. I'll just say that. Let me keep going through here. Antoine saying, I don't know how old money spins a lot better. Sometimes that cloud is so prestigious, you don't even have to reach into your pocket. I mean, I know what we're getting at. We're getting back to talking about me feeling that Oregon is a bit more new money type of situation. I think my statement is more of a matter of a program that has been had success. And look, people are going to point out Ohio State doesn't have nearly enough national championships to equal the amount of success, the amount of games won, everything else is. Ohio State for so many years was a snake-bitten team in terms of going into the game 11-0, a guy falls down, whatever the hell. Ohio State has had some awful, rotten luck through the years. But a program that has had sustained success, I think, approaches things differently than a program that's more Johnny-come-lately. And that's kind of my situation in talking about like a new money program, a Johnny-come-lately program that is going to sit there and address all of these needs that it feels are immediate, but are probably not immediate if you really step back and look at the situation. Oh, I need to build more trophy cases for all of these extra trophies we're going to win. If you don't put the money in other certain parts of your infrastructure, you ain't winning shit. So, it's and I'm making a gross overstatement here to just, make an example, make a point of how an old money program and a new money program might handle things. So I think that they're, still operating on two very different wavelengths. Let me keep going here. McChickens is saying, keep calm and eat a McChicken. I had some Chick-fil-A today instead, and let me tell you, I don't get Chick-fil-A that often. I don't know why I don't get it more often other than the fact it's expensive. But then again, I can't even get a McChicken for $1 anymore. Maybe on the app, I don't know. But McChickens are good in a pinch. Spicy McChicken's a little bit better. Let's just keep going here. Buckholt's asking if I think that the crazy NFL kickoff rule will filter the NC2A. I do. I think that if you can come up with something that creates more returns, that's good. I think if you can take a couple of unnecessary violent impacts out of the game, that's not a bad thing without wholesale changes to the game. I do not like the NFL and by extension college talking about getting rid of the hip drop tackle. It is getting to the point where it is impossible to play defense. You can't cover somebody. Now you can't tackle somebody. You can't look at the quarterback. Are we mere seconds away from putting flags on the players? No. Is that, there's probably somebody out there who's advocating for flags. And look, CTE is nasty, nasty business. Some of these injuries, some of these fluke injuries are nasty, nasty business. I very pro player safety. I think that the kickoff rule does, I mean, if anything, the way it changes the game, it changes it positively because it does create more emphasis on special teams coverage and things of that nature versus just take the damn kickoff out and just start at the 25 because nobody's returning it. Ohio State, when Kerry Combs was running special teams, was doing a good job of burying it in the corner. But now you can just call fair catch and get it taken out to the 25. I am here to keep action in the game. And while you may not have those violent car crashes in that type of situation with what this new kickoff rule is for the NFL, it does create action. It does create returns. It does create excitement. And I don't think that is a bad thing. Having a gunner getting blindsided and blown up just to run down the field doesn't really add anything to me. So I'm okay with it. Sean must have seen what I was eating, saying Chick-fil-A is better. I like Chick-fil-A. Again, I just do not go that often. I had to run and go to the pet store to go get dog food before the storms move in for the dog, not me. I have food. Kevin Chow. So there was right by PetSmart is a Chick-fil-A, so I went through there and I got that. Steve Buckholtz likes Popeyes. I do like the Popeyes as well. Odysseus says that Tony puts ketchup on his spicy chicken sandwich. Tony probably gets the mild chicken sandwich. I watched Tom eat hot wings. I've watched Tony eat nuggies, but I don't know if he goes much past medium. I don't remember these types of things. I only travel and spend months at a time with these guys. Don't ask me to tell you anything about them. I don't remember. Let me just keep scrolling through here as my voice is getting a little scratchy. Here's Scott Ewing jumping into the stadium question. AD mentioned a week or so he has plans for a huge upgrade. See, I thought there was going to be an upgrade to the Woody, but maybe there's going to be something to the stadium. I think, again, it all comes down to dollars. And I've said this time and time again, and I'll say it again. If you have $500 set aside, you're forced to have $500 set aside that you want to give to your alma mater or your favorite team if you didn't go to Ohio State. I have a lot of friends who are Ohio State fans that went to a MAC school or went somewhere else but are from Central Ohio and it's their team. Do you give it to a university, infrastructure fund, or do you give it to NIL or whatever? It'll be very interesting to see how things are funded with these, with 1870 and the foundation and, vying for your dollars as well, because you could have the best stadium in the world. If you don't have any good players, ain't nobody going. If you have a dumpy stadium, you could sit there and have great NIL, but I don't know. And no, Ohio Stadium is not dumpy. I'm just saying if a place goes unmaintained, it could become that way. Let's just keep going through here. All right, here we go. It may have been the WAC, my bad. And that's what I thought. I thought it was about the WAC. I think that the WAC is further behind in its standard than Ohio Stadium. If I were AD, I would replace the turf. And we've talked about this at length over at Buckeye Huddle, that this is the type of artificial surface that the NFL is trying to get away from that they have at Ohio Stadium. Unfortunately, this rug is only like 2 years old. So nobody wants to sit there. Well, it works. And you're also have dealt with, not last year, but the year before, a lot of soft tissue injuries and things of that nature. I would absolutely change the surface. Now, the reality is I'm not a grounds management major, turf management, whatever. I horticulture, none of that is in my field of expertise. You cannot grow grass at Ohio Stadium, period. And everybody's gonna be like, well, where you are in terms of the water table, and I don't care. You're not getting enough sun in there based on the lines and everything else. The last year that Ohio State had grass in there was '06, and they had to replace the grass before the game, and that grass didn't really take, and there was a lot of slipping and sliding and everything else. When Ohio State like lowered everything and took the track out of Ohio State, am I dating myself now? I understand that. It became an impossibility. So the idea of, well, to hell, they just need to put grass in there. That's just not going to work. But I think they could put a better surface in there. Now, football's football, and I don't care. I mean, they could be playing on a field full of my pillows. It's not going to change the fact that it's a violent sport and injuries do happen. But the type of the split fill turf or whatever it's called is one that the NFL Players Association is vehemently against. And of course, that's the type that Ohio State has. So I digress. Doug Shepard says, I share your videos, but most of my circle are nature buffs or cannabis aficionados. They should check out No Naturals. I know it's Delta 9, but that means that it's something that can be shipped everywhere. I have a medical card too, by the way. But, your cannabis aficionados should like the fact that No Naturals is a sponsor of the Big Me Kickoff and that the host has been known to partake. Let me keep scrolling here. Matthew Miller says we'll land Bo Jackson and Jordan Davidson. I agree. Is there a third back in the class? That is the question. Everybody says, well, if there's a third back, it's going to be Marquise Davis. I don't know if you can land all three of those guys in the same class. Let's also not forget that Carlos Loughlin has running backs that he was already recruiting that, he could maybe turn the tide on, and maybe one of those guys could be a third back in the class. And the thing is that we bring in a 3-man class. It's not like you're 1, you're 2, you're 3. 2 and 3 aren't going to like that very much. But the small board is Jordan Davison, Bo Jackson, Marquise Davis, Byron Lewis in Florida. And then, there's some other backs. We're not even talking about a local guy, Kentrell Reinhardt, who I really like a lot. I really like Kentrell Reinhardt. And it's a shame that he's not getting mentioned more. But this is not a great year to be an in-state running back in Ohio if you're not Bo Jackson or Marquise Davis. But Kentrell Reinhardt is a stud. Check out his film if you get an opportunity. He is really, really impressive. If I start skipping some questions, that's only because I'm trying to get caught up. So I apologize if I blow through some questions here. Here's a super chat that I missed. Mellow number 7. It's 1:47 p.m. Michigan still sucks. Well, it's 2:03 p.m. now that I've seen this. So apologies on my 16-minute delay. But I think that most people in this chat would agree that it works on all levels, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, 365 or 66, like this year, leap year, days a year. Let me keep scrolling a little bit. CW2, good afternoon, Kevin, Sean, Stu, Billy, Mello, Steve, I'm sure, and everybody else, as we have now crossed over the hour mark, which kind of was where I was aiming to go. So I'll kind of see what I have left in the comments. I'm going to go live again this week. I have found that I prefer doing live shows more than anything else. The tape shows are fine, and I know that I can be in and out in 20 minutes as opposed to an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. I do have a couple things I've got to get to. I owe somebody a phone call, some other stuff, but hello. Frank says that Wednesday is the 50th anniversary of the Xenia tornado. I did not grow up in Ohio. I am north of 50, not by much, so I wouldn't remember news reports anyway. But I've seen the footage. Terrible. I have a friend that lives kind of out that way, and it's scary stuff. Everybody's like, well, you grew up in Southern California. You dealt with earthquakes. I'm like, if an earthquake got me, I would have never seen it coming. I would just rather my number come up on the random number generator machine then the storm comes in, and I don't want to see it coming. I just don't want to see it coming. Let me just keep kind of scrolling. Here we go. Yakov, do I remember the 1983 NC State Wolfpack? I am wearing NC State today. This is, for those of you who watch the show, you know why I have this. For those who don't, my niece is a freshman at NC State. This is a gift, so I do wear it from time to time. I guess I'm pulling for NC State in the Final Four. Can't root for Zach Edey. I can't. Can't root for UConn. Just can't. Who the hell else is there? I don't know. I'm so lightly involved in the tournament this year, but I do remember. But at 12, and really I was 11 because my birthday's at the end of the year. Not a huge college basketball fan at that point. I was 100% Major League Baseball, and that was it. And until I really got into like junior high school, which was 84, until I really got into junior high school, I was all about Major League Baseball. But I certainly am aware of everything that 83 NC State did. So, I mean, it's a good story. I would love to see NC State win, just, so my niece could sit there and experience something like that. But I also have a feeling that she is not a huge sports person. While I think she's aware of it, I haven't talked to her in the last couple of days. While I'm sure she is aware of what's going on, it would not surprise me if she's watched exactly 0 seconds of action. But, we'll see. But I'm wearing this in honor of my niece, Megan. Let me keep scrolling here. Do you think the coaching expansion rule actually goes through this year? Isaac McIntyre asks. I think that we see the version of the expansion rule that goes through this year of GAs, QCs, QAs, whatever, analysts, whatever, being able to coach. I do not think we see unlimited position coaches. And I know that we're kind of getting a little bit into semantics. What's the difference between this, and this? Well, probably several $100,000. Then again, you can pay an analyst kind of whatever you want. It's not like the NC2A says, here's your salary cap of how much you can pay assistants. No, that doesn't exist. But I don't think we're going to see a case of where the small schools are going to approve a spot to where you can have 25 guys out on the road recruiting. I think that disadvantages small schools, at least in their minds, but I think there's some validity to it too, to where we don't have that kind of budget. We can't do that. So we're never going to land anybody because Alabama and Ohio State and USC are going to have a small army of guys out, and where it used to be of where you can only have 10 guys out and, they could only be in certain spots at certain times just based on the rules of travel and physics and everything else. I mean, if you can have 30 guys on the road, you could be everywhere. You could sit there and you could post a guy up at, IMG Academy. If your top target's at IMG Academy, you can just buy an apartment in Bradenton and just have that guy live there. I'm not getting too far away from some of the stuff SMU did back during the crazy days. So I think we see the other thing come through. I mean, it's only April 2nd. We have the whole off season for stuff to get through the D1 Council and everything else. So I think we see QA go through. I don't think we see unlimited coaching staffs going through. I think that's going to be something that we will not see until after the big one, the earthquake, Big Ten and SEC breaking off from the mainland to create their own Shangri-La. And when that happens, I think we're going to see a case of where it's going to be 95 scholarships, and it's going to be this, it's going to be that, and there's a salary and everything else. Kevin Chavis making me feel really old by saying that they were born in 1983, which makes you 2 years younger than my sister, my youngest sister. So there you go. Sean Schrock, it wasn't Sting in the Wolfpack. Too sweet. Yes. NWO Wolfpack. Let me just keep scrolling here. Kevin, if money was no issue, where in Ohio would you purchase your second home? Does my second home have to be in Ohio? That's not an anti-Ohio statement. If I were going to have a second home, I would like it to be probably like in Florida. I mean, maybe in Lake Norman, off of Lake Norman in North Carolina. There's some really nice lakes in North Georgia going out towards Augusta. I mean, if I had to have a second home in Ohio, I mean, I already live in Columbus, more or less. I live in Pickerington. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I like visiting Cleveland, but I mean, I wouldn't use the house during the winter. I have no reason to go up to Cleveland really during the winter. I like visiting Cincinnati, but again, I don't know. I mean, it's not like I can sit there and it's like, oh my God, Buckeye Lake is so nice. Yeah, I mean, when you don't have a lot of lakes in Ohio to be able to go and live off of, I like Central Ohio. I like Central Ohio for a lot of reasons. I don't know. I just don't know. Maybe something, rustic in Southern Ohio, just out there. I'm not a huge, I'm gonna go hike and do all that stuff, but maybe if I had access to it, I would. So I'll say that. I'll say that. I mean, how about I just take all of that money, sell this house, and just get a really nice house. Just get a nice big house. Let me keep going through. I did miss the super chat. I'm sorry. Without turning around and showing you how my monitor works, normally I get little colored buttons that show that I have super chats. For whatever reason, Mello, yours didn't show up, so I do apologize, but I did get to it. Yakov asking, how does Northwestern have a better football facility than Ohio State? Because it built it much more recently. I mean, it's like you can go out and buy a top-of-the-line car today, and in 10 years, somebody could buy like a mid-range car that's going to be better in a lot of ways than your car. I could go out and buy a computer today. Like this computer I'm using, my laptop, was essentially a fully loaded MacBook Pro. I guarantee an M1. I guarantee you with the M3, I could probably have all the power that I have of this one in a much lesser edition just because it's newer. Certain technologies are cheaper or they've been replaced by other technologies and everything else. So Northwestern has a nicer facility because of the fact that it is a brand new facility, more or less. And Ohio State has to make decisions if it is going to update the bones of the facility it has now, or if it's going to try and add on. I mean, let's remember that they put the Schumacher Center like connected to the Woody, and all that stuff is brand new. And I've not really done a tour of it. I just didn't. But do you put something, connected to the WAC to where you put a lot of your new stuff there, and then you retrofit everything else? Because you can't necessarily go on for like a year without a facility. It's like, well, we're building this. We're building new stuff, and it'll be there. Just you wait. When you need all of this stuff to conduct business, you can't close down. You know what a pain in the ass it is when they close like the interstate for like 8 hours overnight so they can put an overpass or something like that. You can't close the interstate for 9 months while you tear it down and start over. You just can't do that. So there are some inherent challenges there. Doug says, I know producers of quality and quantity. I know a little bit about it, just a little. Here's the issue I run into. I fall behind and I don't remember the reference that we're making, so I apologize with that. Mika Hanna, thanks, guys. Appreciate everything. Love all my Buckeye family. Love you too, Mika. Hope you are doing well. We have talked about recruiting some. You did follow up about Cedric Works not visiting. I'm just telling you, Mika, don't get too caught up on one recruit. You have really, are you related to Ced? Maybe? I don't know, because you've really trumpeted for Cedric Works to get further along in his recruitment in terms of Ohio State. I don't see it at this point. visits happen, visits change. I mean, could he show up for the spring game? I don't necessarily know, but at this point, I don't feel that he's high enough on the recruiting board for Ohio State to where I'm going to get too caught up. I understand that he plays a position where Ohio State has to hit its number. It has to hit its number. You can't have another Dominic Kirk situation of where you hold on for dear life to flip a kid from another school to even come close to your number. So I think that, I think Ohio State has to make sure that it keeps said works warm, but you also can't go nuts there. You cannot be like, we love you, we love you, we love you. Well, I love you too. I'm in. Oh, whoa. I was kidding. I'm kidding. Let's slow this down. You've heard me say it. You've heard me say it. It's a dance. You have to be able to maintain there. Here's another super chat from Doug Shepard. I don't know why I'm not seeing my super chat, so I apologize. Thanks for the show, Kevin. Have a beer on me. I like the way you're thinking. Probably not tonight, just because I don't even have any beer in the house right now. That's crazy. I don't even have any beer in the house, and I'm not taking my car out of the garage if it's going to hail tonight. Let me just keep going through here. Steve Buckhold saying that, hit the thumbs up. There you go. I agree with that. Doug asking, any chance for a meetup at the spring game of the Buckeye Huddle family? I would love to do it. If somebody is having a planned tailgate, email me at kevin@buckeyegrove.com. Yes, I still have my old email address. kevin@buckeyegrove.com. And we will see about maybe deadheading in on that. If we get enough people interested, I'll see if Mark maybe will be able to throw a little bit of a contribution for some food or beer that we might, be responsible for. I don't want to make any promises on that, but we would, we certainly want to meet all of our members. It is very important for us to get out there and make those types of connections. People are like, well, why don't you host a tailgate? And the reason we don't host a tailgate is we got a lot of work to do. We've got to get out there and see recruits and everything else. And by the time that we have to go into the stadium, it's like everybody's like, well, we're just showing up to the tailgate, so we cannot be the one responsible. A little breaking news. Bruce Thornton just tweeted out that he is coming back to Ohio State. So we don't talk a lot of basketball here. Bruce Thornton is coming back to Ohio State. I just had somebody text me his graphics. So there you go. We are starting to lose my voice, which is a sign that I'm not doing enough long shows. Isaac is asking, has anybody's tried 1870 Society beer? I think it's my go-to beer now. I've not tried it. I know people over at 1870. One was going to bring over a case and leave it here for me. And we just never, connected on that. I'm going to bug them again. I think I've seen it out at the store, but I'm trying to cut back on my beer a little bit. I just, too many. So I'm interested. So if you really like it, that's good to know. Antoine asking, no beer, am I depressed? It doesn't matter if I have beer or not. I'm always depressed, but no, it's all good. It's all good. I have bourbon if push comes to shove. Well, you know what? I think we've kind of run through everything, and we've gone almost an hour 20. So I want to thank everybody for being part of the show. I'm going to go live again, probably on Friday, probably at the same time, 1:00. How will you know for sure? Subscribe to the channel here at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Hit that bell, hit that thumbs up. All of that will help you know not only when I bring my show to you, Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, all of our great content here on the channel. If you're listening on one of your favorite podcasting outlets, leave us a 5-star review. That helps us with our distribution amongst all of our listeners, helps bring more people to the fray, and most importantly, sign up for Buckeye Huddle. Tell them Kevin sent you. But seriously, sign up for Buckeye Huddle. Check us out there for price of a crummy delivery pizza. probably even less now that everything's so damn expensive. You can get all the best team coverage, recruiting coverage, community, all of that at buckeyehuddle.com. But until next time, Friday, I want to thank everybody for watching. Stay safe, especially if you're in Central Ohio. Stay safe. Have a plan. Have a plan for if that storm, those tornado sirens go off. Have a plan. Make sure you know it. Make sure your family knows it. Grab your pets, everything else, and be safe. And we will all come back together again on Friday.